Relationships are a dance of vulnerability and strength, a delicate interplay of connection and independence. But what happens when the person you love keeps their distance? Not out of malice, but because their walls are the only fortress they've ever known. It's easy to feel rejected, to assume their withdrawal is a reflection of your worth. But let me tell you something fundamental. Their avoidance is not about you. It's about survival, about patterns forged in the fire of past wounds. Yet, here's the profound truth. You have the power to create a bridge where there seems to be only a chasm. You can learn to navigate this labyrinth of emotional barriers, not by breaking them down with force, but by extending an invitation, steady, patient, and deeply compassionate. What if I told you that your understanding and approach could transform not just your relationship, but also heal the unseen pain your partner carries? When you see someone withdraw, when you witness them build walls as though the very act of closeness threatens their foundation, you must understand this. Those walls were not constructed arbitrarily. They are not random acts of rejection. They are shields forged long before you entered the picture. Behind every avoidant behavior lies a history, sometimes buried, often ignored, but undeniably present, a history that shaped their view of the world, of themselves, and of others. To connect with such a person, you must first grasp the origins of this emotional distance, for without understanding, there can be no bridge, no true connection. Imagine a child reaching out in innocence, seeking comfort, but finding instead inconsistency, neglect, or even punishment. Each unanswered cry, each moment of rejection teaches the young heart a bitter lesson. Vulnerability is dangerous. They learn, perhaps without words, that to need is to invite pain, that to trust is to risk betrayal. This is not the story of weakness, it is a story of survival. Their very identity, their perception of love and safety, is carved out of this harsh reality. And as they grow, this lesson becomes a part of them, a silent, unseen force that dictates their every interaction. Think of the parable of the prodigal son. The son, in his pride and fear, distanced himself from his father, wandering far from love and grace. Yet the father's response was not anger or condemnation. It was patience, a steady, unwavering love that remained even when the son was lost. This is the love we are called to offer, not a love that demands immediate reciprocation, but a love that waits, that understands the wounds behind the distance, that knows healing is a journey, not a single act. To truly connect, you must resist the temptation to take their avoidance personally. This is not about you. Their behavior is a response to battles you have not seen, to scars they may never speak of. And here lies the first great challenge, to approach them with empathy rather than resentment, to see their defenses not as a rejection of your love, but as a reflection of their fear. It is not your role to fix them, for you are not their savior. Instead, you are called to be a mirror of grace, to embody the strength that says, I see you, I will not abandon you, and I will not demand what you cannot yet give. But let me be clear, understanding their history does not mean excusing harmful behaviors or sacrificing your own dignity. Boundaries, both theirs and yours, are essential. Just as they have a right to their space, you have a right to your worth. The balance between compassion and self-respect is not a contradiction. It is a reflection of mature love. Even Christ, in his boundless mercy, knew when to stand firm, when to walk away, when to invite repentance. Practically speaking, this means asking yourself difficult questions. Can I see their fear without internalizing it? Can I hold space for their healing without neglecting my own? And most importantly, can I stay rooted in truth, offering love without enabling the very patterns that hurt them? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. For the road to emotional connection is not paved with ease or comfort. It is paved with sacrifice, wisdom, and an unshakable commitment to growth. And so as you stand before the walls they've built, do not bring a hammer. Bring patience. Bring understanding. Bring the courage to listen, not just to their words, but to the silence between them. In that silence, you may find the echoes of a child's cry, a plea for love that was never answered. And when you hear it, do not despair, for in hearing it, you hold the key to something extraordinary, the possibility of rewriting the story, of showing them that love does not always wound, that trust does not always betray. This is the first step, the foundation of the bridge you seek to build. It is not an easy step, but it is the most important one. For only when you understand the roots of their behavior can you begin to meet them where they are, rather than where you wish they would be. Only then can you begin to connect in a way that heals rather than harms, that invites rather than demands. Creating a safe space is not simply about the absence of conflict. It is a deliberate act of love, a conscious decision to offer refuge in a world that often feels cold, unpredictable, and unkind. For someone who is avoidant, this space is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Without it, their heart, already wary of intimacy, will retreat further into the shadows. To build trust, you must become a sanctuary, not by force, but by embodying the quiet, steady presence that says, "You are safe here, you are seen, and you are enough." Trust is not given. It is earned, brick by brick, moment by moment, through actions that demonstrate reliability and care. Think of God's covenant with his people, a promise repeated throughout the scriptures, not in fleeting words, but in the consistent demonstration of his faithfulness. Just as he guided the Israelites through the wilderness, patiently bearing their doubts and fears, you too must guide your partner through the wilderness of their uncertainty. This is not a task for the faint of heart. It requires strength, humility, and an unyielding commitment to remain steadfast even when their trust feels impossibly out of reach. The essence of a safe space lies in its freedom from judgment. When your partner hesitates to share their thoughts or emotions, it is often because they fear condemnation. Imagine the woman at the well, burdened by her shame and yet met by Christ with compassion and truth. He did not dismiss her past, but neither did he weaponize it. Instead, he offered her living water, an invitation to growth and redemption. In the same way, you must resist the urge to criticize or demand. Your role is not to fix them, but to walk alongside them, offering understanding as they navigate their own journey. This does not mean you ignore your own needs or allow harmful patterns to persist. A safe space is not a place of permissiveness, it is a place of balance. Just as a shepherd protects the flock while guiding it, you must set boundaries that uphold both your dignity and theirs. Boundaries are not barriers. They are the framework within which trust can flourish. When you establish these boundaries with clarity and kindness, you are not pushing them away. You are showing them that love can exist alongside respect. Practically, this means being intentional about your words and actions. Speak with gentleness, but also with honesty. When they withdraw, do not chase them with desperation or accusations. Instead, let your presence be a reminder that they are not alone. In the silence, in the moments of distance, you can still offer reassurance, not through grand gestures, but through consistency. It is in the small, everyday acts of care that trust is built. A kind word, a thoughtful gesture, a willingness to listen without interrupting. Or consider also the importance of patience. Trust does not grow overnight, and to expect immediate results is to misunderstand the depth of their wounds. The parable of the mustard seed teaches us that growth often begins in the smallest, most unassuming ways. A single act of understanding, a single moment of grace can plant a seed that over time becomes something greater than you could have imagined. Your patience is not passivity. It is a quiet strength that says, I believe in the goodness within you, even when you cannot see it yourself. But let me warn you, creating a safe space is not without its challenges. There will be moments when your patience wears thin, when their silence feels unbearable, when you question whether your efforts are in vain. In those moments, remember this. Trust is not just for their sake, it is also for yours. It is a reflection of your own capacity for love, your own willingness to rise above fear and selfishness. When you build a safe space, you are not only inviting them to heal, you are also transforming yourself into someone capable of greater depth and resilience. This is the beauty of love, rooted in truth and understanding. It demands much, but it gives more. It calls you to confront your own insecurities, your own fears of rejection, and to rise above them. And when you do, you create a space not only for their growth, but also for your own. A space where both of you can find a deeper, truer connection, free from the chains of fear and doubt. Listening is not merely hearing. It is not a passive act, nor is it a simple exchange of words. True listening is an offering of presence, a profound commitment to understanding another human being in their entirety, fears, hopes, and unspoken truths alike. To listen actively is to open your heart and mind fully, not to respond, but to receive. It is to say, I value your voice. I value your pain. I value the depth of who you are. And for an avoidant partner, this type of listening can be nothing short of transformative. Consider how often people listen with one ear tilted toward their own thoughts, waiting for the opportunity to speak, to offer solutions, to steer the conversation toward their own understanding. This is not listening. This is control disguised as compassion. It is self-centeredness masquerading as care. But an avoidant partner will sense this immediately. They will feel the weight of expectation, the subtle pressure to explain themselves in ways that satisfy your needs rather than their own. And so they retreat further, reinforcing the walls that keep them safe. Think of Job's friends who sat with him in his suffering but failed to hear the depth of his anguish. Their words were full of explanations, full of attempts to rationalize his pain. But what Job needed was not their reasoning. He needed their presence. He needed them to sit with him in the discomfort of his grief, to witness his sorrow without judgment or haste. This is the essence of active listening, to bear witness without the need to fix, to stay present in the silence without the compulsion to fill it. When your partner speaks, even if it is only a whisper of vulnerability, you must treat their words as sacred. Do not rush to respond, to solve, or to interpret. Instead, let their words hang in the air, giving them the space to unfold fully. Listen with your eyes, your posture, your entire being, signaling not just with words, but with your presence that you are there fully and unequivocally. This is not a time to argue, to correct, or to defend yourself. It is a time to understand. And understanding requires humility. It requires the willingness to put aside your own assumptions and to step into their world, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it challenges your perspective. This is not an easy task, for it demands a kind of selflessness that is rare in human relationships. It demands the sacrifice of your ego, the surrender of your need to be right, to be heard, to be validated in the moment. But this sacrifice is not a loss. It is an offering of love, a testament to your commitment to something greater than yourself. To listen actively is also to validate. This does not mean agreeing with everything your partner says or feels, but it does mean acknowledging the truth of their experience. It means saying, I see you, I hear you, and what you feel matters to me. Validation is not weakness. It is strength. It is the ability to hold space for someone else's reality without diminishing your own. And for an avoidant partner, this validation can be a lifeline, a reminder that their feelings, however messy or confusing, are not a burden but a part of their humanity. Do not underestimate the power of small affirmations, a nod, a gentle word, a moment of silence that speaks volumes. These are not trivial acts. They are the building blocks of trust. They show your partner that they do not need to explain themselves perfectly, that their imperfections are not a barrier to connection. They create a foundation upon which deeper conversations can be built. Conversations that do not just skim the surface, but dive into the depths of who they are. And let us not forget the spiritual dimension of listening. When Christ spoke to the crowds, he did not merely address their questions. He addressed their hearts. He listened to the unspoken cries of their souls, responding not just to their words, but to the needs they could not articulate. In this, he set an example for all of us to listen with compassion, to hear not only what is said, but also what is left unsaid, and to respond with love that transcends the moment. This is your task, to become a vessel of understanding, to offer the gift of presence without conditions. It is not easy and it is not quick, but it is worth it, for when you truly listen, you do more than hear. You connect. You create a space where healing can begin, where love can flourish, where two souls can meet not in fear but in faith. Patience with self-respect is not a compromise, it is a covenant. It is the unyielding balance between enduring for the sake of love and refusing to abandon your own dignity in the process. To love an avoidant partner is to stand at the intersection of compassion and strength, knowing when to wait and when to walk, when to bend and when to remain unshaken. Without this balance, love becomes a hollow shell, either consumed by self-sacrifice or hardened by resentment. Think of the prodigal son's father, who waited not in desperation but in steadfast hope. He did not chase his son into the distant land of his rebellion, for he understood that some journeys must be taken alone. Yet he also did not close the door, did not withdraw his love or his welcome. He stood firm, rooted in his identity as a father, offering both the patience of an open heart and the self-respect of unshaken integrity. This is the model for patience with self-respect, love that waits without losing itself, love that gives without becoming a martyr. Patience is not passivity. It is not the silent acceptance of behavior that erodes your spirit. It is active, deliberate, and purposeful. A choice made each day to see the person beyond their defenses, to honor their journey without neglecting your own. This is a patience that requires courage, for it demands that you face your own fears of rejection, your own doubts about your worth, and still choose to hold space for another. It is a patience rooted not in weakness but in strength, the strength to love without losing yourself, to hope without clinging, to remain steady even when the road is uncertain. But let us not confuse patience with endurance for the sake of endurance. Christ himself, though full of mercy, did not allow the Pharisees to twist his mission or the crowds to dictate his path. He set boundaries with unwavering clarity, demonstrating that true love does not mean surrendering to the whims of others. It means knowing your worth, standing firm in your values, and refusing to enable the very behaviors that cause harm. To practice patience with self-respect is to follow this example, to love deeply while remaining grounded in truth. Practically, this means being honest with yourself about what you can and cannot accept. It means recognizing the difference between their struggles and your sacrifices. Are you giving out of love or are you giving out of fear? Are you waiting because you see their potential or because you are afraid to let go? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary. For without clarity, patience can quickly turn into self-neglect, and love can become an excuse for staying in places that diminish your soul. Self-respect also means setting boundaries, not as ultimatums, but as affirmations of your own value. Boundaries are not walls to keep others out. They are guidelines for healthy connection. They say, I love you, but I will not abandon myself in the process. For an avoidant partner, these boundaries can be both a challenge and a gift. They may resist at first, but over time, they will come to see them as a sign of your strength, a reminder that love is not about losing oneself, but about meeting as equals. And yet, patience remains. It is the thread that holds everything together, the quiet strength that endures even when progress feels slow. Patience does not demand immediate change, but it does trust in the possibility of growth. It understands that healing is not linear, that connection is not built in a single moment, but in 1,000 small acts of grace. It is the willingness to stay, not out of obligation, but out of a belief in the power of love to transform. To practice patience with self-respect is to embody the tension between hope and reality. It is to say, I will love you where you are, but I will not abandon who I am. It is to stand firm, not as a fortress, but as a lighthouse, offering light without compromising its foundation. This is the balance that sustains relationships, the balance that allows both partners to grow without losing themselves. And it is a balance that, when achieved, becomes the bedrock of a love that is both fierce and unbreakable. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is not the fragile shell of defeat or the trembling voice of fear. It is the courageous act of standing before another person, unarmored and unhidden, and saying, "This is who I am." It is the essence of humanity itself, the willingness to embrace imperfection while daring to be known. For an avoidant partner, your vulnerability is not just an invitation. It is a lifeline, a living proof that trust and openness are not only possible but also transformative. To be vulnerable is to risk, and therein lies its power. It is easy to hide behind walls, to shield yourself with the facades of strength or indifference, to guard your heart so tightly that nothing can reach it. But what is gained in safety is lost in connection. The Bible reminds us that perfect love casts out fear, but love cannot cast out what it cannot reach. Vulnerability is the bridge between fear and love, a pathway that invites others into your world while giving them permission to do the same. Think of Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, kneeling under the weight of his impending sacrifice. He did not mask his anguish. He did not hide his tears. Instead, he prayed openly, vulnerably, revealing the depth of his sorrow and the magnitude of his struggle. And in doing so, he taught us that strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the willingness to face it. To love an avoidant partner is to embody this same courage, to show them that vulnerability is not their enemy, but their salvation. But vulnerability is not just about sharing your struggles. It is about sharing your truth. It is about being honest, not only in words, but in actions. When you feel hurt, say so, not with accusation, but with authenticity. When you feel joy, express it without restraint. This kind of openness creates a space where trust can flourish, a space where your partner can begin to see that vulnerability is not a weapon, but a gift. Yet vulnerability must be offered wisely. It is not the reckless spilling of emotions or the expectation that others will always respond in kind. It is the deliberate choice to open a door, knowing full well that it may not be walked through. And this requires discernment. Just as pearls are not cast before swine, your vulnerability should not be offered where it will be trampled or dismissed. It must be rooted in self-respect, balanced by an understanding of your worth. For an avoidant partner, your vulnerability is more than words. It is a demonstration of what they fear and yet long for. They may resist it at first, misinterpret it as weakness, or even recoil from it. But over time, as they witness your consistency and courage, they will begin to see its truth. They will begin to understand that vulnerability is not about losing control, but about gaining connection. And in that understanding, they may find the courage to be vulnerable themselves. Consider also the practical expressions of vulnerability, the gentle admission of mistakes, the quiet acknowledgement of insecurities, the willingness to ask for help. These acts may seem small, but they are profound. They show your partner that perfection is not a prerequisite for love, that flaws are not barriers but bridges. They invite your partner to lower their own defenses, to see that they too can be accepted as they are without pretense or performance. This is not an easy path. Vulnerability is a risk, and not all risks are rewarded. There will be times when your openness is met with silence, when your courage feels unnoticed, when your efforts seem to fall flat. But do not be discouraged. Remember the parable of the sower. Some seeds fall on rocky ground, some among thorns, but some fall on fertile soil and yield a harvest 100-fold. Your vulnerability is the seed, and though you cannot control where it lands, you can trust in the power of its potential. Vulnerability is not the absence of fear. It is the triumph over it. It is the willingness to step into the unknown, not because you are certain of the outcome, but because you believe in the possibility of connection. And in that belief, you offer your partner a gift more valuable than words, the chance to see that love is not a game to be won or lost, but a journey to be shared, one vulnerable step at a time. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is transformative. It is the quiet strength that underpins trust, the steady rhythm that allows relationships to weather the chaos of human frailty. For an avoidant partner whose instincts often urge them to retreat rather than engage, your consistency is not just an act of love, it is a declaration of stability in a world they often perceive as unpredictable and unsafe. To be consistent is to say, through actions rather than words, I will not waver even when you do. In a society that glorifies instant gratification, consistency may seem tedious, even mundane. It requires effort without immediate reward, patience without visible progress. But think of the farmer who sows seeds. He does not plant one day and reap the next. He waits, trusting in the unseen work of growth beneath the soil. Likewise, your consistency is the soil in which connection takes root, the foundation upon which trust can be built, even if the fruits of your labor are not immediately visible. Consider the story of Moses leading the Israelites through the wilderness. For 40 years, he endured their doubts, their complaints, their rebellion. Yet he remained faithful to his calling, consistent in his leadership, even when the promised land seemed impossibly far. This is the essence of consistency, to persevere not because the path is easy, but because the journey is worth it. In your relationship, you are called to a similar perseverance, a commitment to show up, to be present, to remain steady, even when the journey feels uncertain. But consistency is not merely about repetition. It is about intentionality. It is not enough to simply go through the motions. Your actions must align with your words. Your intentions must be clear. Your love must be authentic. For an avoidant partner who may struggle to believe in the permanence of connection, inconsistency can be deeply destabilizing. A kind word followed by a dismissive act, a promise made but not kept. These small lapses can reinforce their fears, convincing them that connection is fleeting, that trust is a risk not worth taking. Your consistency must also extend to the way you handle conflict. In moments of tension, it is tempting to react impulsively, to let anger or frustration dictate your actions. But for an avoidant partner who may already view conflict as a threat to connection, your ability to remain calm and composed is critical. It shows them that disagreements do not mean disconnection, that love is not contingent on perfect harmony. It is in these moments that your consistency becomes a lifeline, a reminder that you are not swayed by the storm. Yet consistency does not mean perfection. To be human is to falter, to make mistakes, to occasionally fall short of your own ideals. But even in your failures, you can demonstrate consistency by how you respond. Admit your mistakes without defensiveness, apologize without hesitation, and recommit to the path you have chosen. In doing so, you show your partner that consistency is not about never falling. It is about always rising again. And let us not forget the spiritual dimension of consistency. In the scriptures, God is described as unchanging, faithful, the same yesterday, today, and forever. This divine constancy is the model for our own relationships, not in the sense of achieving perfection, but in striving to reflect the steadfastness of divine love. To be consistent is to echo this love, to embody its patience, its resilience, its unyielding commitment to the well-being of the other. Consistency also requires self-discipline. It is not enough to simply will yourself to be steady. You must cultivate habits that support your intentions. This may mean practicing active listening even when you feel distracted, expressing appreciation even when it feels redundant, showing up even when you are tired. These small acts, repeated over time, create a pattern of reliability that becomes the bedrock of trust. Ultimately, consistency is an act of faith. It is the belief that love, nurtured with care and intention, will grow even in the face of doubt. It is the trust that your efforts, though imperfect, are meaningful. And it is the hope that your steady presence will invite your partner to take the first steps out of their walls, to meet you on the common ground of connection. For in consistency lies the power to transform not just your partner, but yourself and the love you share together.